Hello, I'm Stewart A. Swerdlow, and this is the expansions news for the very first week of September 2011. As many of you know, I just came back from a round-the-world trip where I stopped in Africa and Asia and California, and it was quite interesting to see, especially in Africa, all of the Chinese working in Ethiopia and Kenya and the surrounding countries, building the roads, fixing up the infrastructure, really becoming a part of their society. And the Africans are very curious about this. I mean, obviously the Chinese want a foothold in Africa for their own purposes so that they can get the resources, gold, metals, etc. that are located there. But the interesting thing one of the Africans told me was that the Chinese are building roads and buildings, and then a few years later they collapse and they have to be rebuilt. So the quality of what they're doing is not very good. It seems like they're doing things just for show, to gain the confidence of the people in the government, and then they're going about their own business behind the scenes, doing whatever they want to do. Another interesting thing that I noticed, and I mentioned this on my news on the site on expansions.com, was the very curious security ideas in Dubai. I've been to Dubai a few times, and they have a complete collection of all my beard scissors that they keep taking away from me. Yet, on the plane, they give me a metal knife, a sharp one. So, it doesn't make sense to me. Why take away my little scissors that really could do no damage to anyone, but give me a knife? Someone needs to explain that, because it makes no sense whatsoever. Another thing is, for example, in Singapore, the country has really changed drastically. It's become very Americanized. The rules and regulations have changed. And one interesting thing that happened to me was on the way there, the immigration form asked if I had been to Africa in the last 6 days, and of course I had been, and you had to check yes or no. I knew if I checked yes, I would immediately be quarantined and denied entrance. And if I checked no, and it was discovered that I had lied on the immigration form, according to the paperwork that they gave me, the penalty is death for any drug dealers, lying information, anyone who doesn't tell them the truth. So, what a dilemma. Well, I took a chance. I did my oversoul work, and I checked no, and because I knew I wasn't diseased or anything, I wasn't going to harm anything. And so when I got to the immigration, I thought there'd be a whole crowd of people there, when in fact I was the only one. I don't know where everybody was. Perhaps they were all hiding behind the door to see what would happen to me. But I went over there, and I put my passport in and gave him the guy my form, and he thumbs through my paper and he's looking at me, and I thought, oh God, he's going to see the stamps in there. And so he opens my passport right to the page where I have my Kenya visa, and stamps the Singapore one right next to it and says, welcome to Singapore, obviously not looking. So my point to tell you all of this is, what kind of security is there in the world when they give you a knife on the plane, they don't look really at your passport? And I remember I told you in Bosnia, we went with a van, they didn't even look in the van, we could have had bazookas in there. That's why people get away with things on this planet, because they're letting people in everywhere. In the United States, when I arrived at LAX and went through immigration there, it was a complete zoo. I mean, personally, there was a line, I'd had to be a quarter of a mile long to get out of there, really asking questions, looking at people's bags. And this was 10 p.m. at night. It took a long time to get out of there. And in the end, they really didn't check anything at all. And the questions they asked, you could lie about all of it and they wouldn't even check it. In fact, my passport didn't even register on their computer. So what is going on in immigration? Any of you out there that have inside information about the computers at immigration and customs, about the rules and regulations globally, what's right in one country is not right in another, why are my scissors allowed in the United States and not in Dubai or Hong Kong? Makes no sense whatsoever. So I'm going to be talking about this a lot more on podcasts in the future. Those of you who get my newsletter, I'll be giving very interesting details about my trip in Africa and Asia, and even California, and I'll be describing what I have found and learned about certain areas there, which I'll be giving out again in my newsletter. So lots of things going on in the world. I read about a surfer whose legs were bitten off by sharks. Seems to be shark attacks just about every other day somewhere in the world. A 90-year-old woman was dragged by an alligator into a canal and lost her leg. What's going on with the animals? I also saw this morning that a bear got into a car in Lake Tahoe and actually switched, pressed on the stick shift and drove the car down the road. A bear. Animals are behaving very strangely. Watch your dogs and cats at home. See what they're doing behind the scenes. Might be very interesting. Well, as you can imagine, I'm very tired and exhausted from my trip, so I'm going to make this very brief until next time. This is Stewart A. Swerdlow for Expansions.com.